Hello, dear viewers. In the distant and harsh year of 1942, as the Battle of Stalingrad reached its climax, the Wehrmacht amassed not only numerous German divisions at the city's walls, but also an impressive number of soldiers representing various nationalities: Italians, Hungarians, Romanians, Slovaks, and Estonians. Unfortunately, within this multinational conglomerate were also traitors from among Soviet citizens who had gone over to the enemy's side. In historical literature, and especially on the internet, the myth of the so-called von Stumpfeld division is widespread. This division is alleged to have been formed entirely from Soviet collaborators and, according to various and often exaggerated estimates, numbered between 50,000 and 70,000, and sometimes even 100,000 men. Almost everyone has come across amateur articles with catchy but completely unreliable headlines like, "Every fifth soldier in Paulus's army was Russian." Such publications, alas, are ubiquitous, misleading people. But, as folk wisdom says, there's no smoke without fire. Every myth has a kernel of truth, and our task is to separate fact from fiction, to understand what really happened. Let's try together to restore historical justice and shed light on the events of those distant years. Numerous, often untrustworthy sources claim that the von Stumpfeld division was created on December 12, 1943. That is, after Field Marshal Paulus's Sixth Army was already trapped in the iron ring of encirclement. Moreover, it's claimed that this mythical division supposedly fought shoulder to shoulder with German soldiers in Stalingrad itself, to the last bullet, continuing desperate resistance even for a whole week after the official German surrender on February 2, 1943. A captivating story, to be sure, but how much does it correspond to reality? To learn the truth and separate the wheat from the chaff, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and you'll gain access to many exciting and authentic stories about World War II, as well as the perspectives of all sides of the conflict on various events. We strive to provide you with the most complete and objective information based on historical facts and documents. Surovikino, not Stalingrad. Geographical accuracy is important. In fact, as archival documents show, the Stumpfeld group was formed and operated not in Stalingrad itself, but 150 kilometers away in the Surovikino area. To be even more precise, its location was the west bank of the Chir River, between Height 161 and the Lisinski Kutor farm. This is a crucial clarification, often overlooked or deliberately ignored by authors seeking sensationalism. It was in this place 3 weeks after Paulus's Sixth Army was tightly encircled by Soviet troops that Soviet defectors, whom the Germans called Hueys, policemen and other individuals collaborating with the occupation authorities and at the disposal of the German command in southern Russia, were gathered and united into a separate combat group under the command of Lieutenant General Hans Joachim von Stumpfeld. This was an attempt to consolidate scattered forces and create at least the semblance of organized resistance. A significant, and possibly the larger, part of this group consisted of Don Cossacks, who, for various reasons, had entered German service in 1941-1942. In these places on the banks of the Don, they felt, as they say, at home, literally. For them, this was their native land, familiar from childhood. It's noteworthy that for the 62-year-old General Stumpfeld, this service was one of the final stages of his long military career. In the spring of 1943, he retired and withdrew to his estate, Wolfskühle, in Mecklenburg, where he lived in relative peace until 1945, when representatives of the Soviet Military Counterintelligence, SMERSH, came for him. German archives, the key to understanding events. Fortunately for researchers of history, and unfortunately for lovers of sensationalism and historical falsifications, the archives of the Russian Ministry of Defense hold invaluable documents shedding light on the events of those harsh years. These archival materials are captured documents seized by Soviet troops from the headquarters of German combat groups operating in the Lower Chir region. They were meticulously translated into Russian by translators of the Intelligence Department of the 5th Tank Army's headquarters in November-December 1942, almost immediately after their capture. The information contained in these captured documents provides us with a complete and, importantly, reliable picture of the composition and strength of the combat groups operating in the sector between Surovikino and Lisinski Khutor as of December 7, 1942. This is an invaluable source of information for historians, allowing the reconstruction of events with a high degree of accuracy. So, we are talking about the following combat groups. Combat Group Schmidt, under the command of Colonel Schmidt, with a strength of 3,500 men. Combat Group Weike, under the command of Captain Weike, including 1,500 infantry and 18 tanks. Combat Group Zell, under the command of Colonel Zell, with a strength of 1,000 men. And finally, Combat Group Stumpfeld, under the command of Lieutenant General von Stumpfeld, numbering 8,100 men. Let's analyze their disposition. Group Schmidt occupied defensive positions around the important transport hub, the Surovikino railway station. Group Weike adjoined its right flank, with positions located south of Surovikino on the west bank of the Chir River. Even further south was Group Zell, to whose right flank, in turn, adjoined the 13th Regiment of the 7th German Luftwaffe Field Division. And finally, south of the positions of this regiment began the positions of Group Stumpfeld itself, the core of which consisted of Don Cossacks and Soviet defectors. It's important to note that the data provided on the strength of the combat groups are taken directly from captured German documents, which significantly increases their reliability and allows us to discard speculation and conjecture. The composition of Group Stumpfeld, truth and fiction. And now let's move on to the most interesting and important question. Who actually made up Group Stumpfeld? Group Schmidt included the 2nd Company of the 36th Estonian Police Battalion. Another Estonian company, the 1st, with a strength of 273 men, was part of Combat Group Weike. The total number of Estonian policemen who arrived in the Surovikino area on November 26, 1942, was 425 enlisted men and NCOs and 23 officers. Fortunately, we have at our disposal a valuable historical document, the War Diary of the 36th Estonian Police Battalion, containing detailed entries from November 15th to December 7th, 1942. On December 7th, the headquarters of this Estonian unit was destroyed by Soviet troops, and its documents, including this diary, were captured as trophies. Combat Group Weike also included 20 Russian workers, whom the Germans called Hiwis, and the Kharkov II Battalion, with a strength of 330 men. The name Kharkov II, of course, can be misleading, creating the impression that this battalion was formed from Soviet citizens in occupied Kharkov. However, in reality, it consisted exclusively of Germans serving in various rear units, butchers, cooks, drivers, guards, and so on. The Russian name was probably given for ease of identification. Thus, if we don't count the 448 Estonian policemen in the 3 combat groups mentioned, whose total strength reached 6,000 men, besides the 20 Hiwis, there were practically no other traitors from among Soviet citizens. This is an important fact that debunks the common myth about the mass participation of Soviet collaborators in combat operations on the side of the Wehrmacht in the Stalingrad area. The core of Group Stumpfeld, as we've already mentioned, did indeed consist of former Soviet citizens, mainly Don Cossacks. However, its officer corps was entirely German, which speaks volumes. Besides Cossack cavalry, the group included 2 infantry regiments, each consisting of 4 battalions numbering from 150 to 400 men, an artillery group armed with about 20 guns of various calibers, both their own and captured Soviet ones, and a tank group consisting of 5 captured T-34 tanks. In addition, Group Stumpfeld was assigned a German anti-aircraft battery armed with powerful 80mm guns. That's all that remains of the legend of the mighty von Stumpfeld division, which some amateur historians and internet publicists inflate to incredible proportions, presenting it as a whole army of traitors. We hope that our account has helped you understand this complex and convoluted issue. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to leave your comments, like this video, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new, interesting, and informative releases. See you soon.